not lose. So just buying the 4,000 leads, I wrote 21 grand. And then I was like, all right, like I'm just going to spend more. And I spent like 5 grand the next month. So now we're into, month 2. Then I wrote like 34. And now I'm starting to get momentum. And the momentum came from consistency in the schedule, dialing the 2 days, Monday, Thursday, running the full days in the field, Thursday, whatever, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and just exhausting everything and working harder than I'd ever worked. And you had mentioned it on our call earlier. If you kind of leave it all out on the field like that in those first 90 days and just keep going, you're not going to lose, because there's someone waiting for you that's ready to get insurance and pay $100 a month and take you from being in the red into the black really, really quickly. You just got to find that person. So that's kind of like my 90 days. And then I guess I'd say month 3, I think I did 21, 34, and then like 57. And all it was I just kept increasing my lead flow. That's all it really was. I kept increasing lead flow, working, training, and getting better.
So you said something that really stood out to me, because a lot of new agents, I know a lot of people on this call, that's their biggest struggle. We all know 30 appointments is the magic number, but they're struggling their first few months. It's 8 appointments, it's 10, it's 11. And you wrote over 700,000 your first year, and your first 3 months was that same struggle. So if you could go back, if what I'm hearing correctly, you stuck out the activity when you didn't have the appointments you were doing out, you stuck to your schedule, you didn't let up. And then did you increase your lead flow? Is that one of the other things that you did?
Yeah, I definitely increased the lead flow, and I was diverse in the lead flow. So meaning, like, I think sometimes new agents are like, they're trying to buy the magic lead, and it's like, guess what the magic lead is? All of them. Just buy them. And I heard this on a training. I forget who said it. It was a couple of weeks ago. And they said, if you buy something one time and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean you stop buying it the second time. He's like, try a vendor or try a type 3 times. If it really just doesn't work at that point, sure, try another one. We have a million. But try it, and don't be afraid to try it, because there's gold in every type of lead. You're not going to sit there and find the magical. I don't care if you run mortgage, whatever. You're not finding the magical lead. You have to try different things and be very diverse.
So when you first came on, and that's huge, because I think a lot of people stick to one type of lead. So your biggest advice is to really diversify. And what were you running in the beginning? Were you running just mortgage? Were you running final expense? Were you running, I know Internet Life wasn't really, it wasn't it wasn't there actually when you came on. So what leads were you running, or are you running now?
Right in the beginning, it was a couple different Facebook final expense. I think it was like social insurance and like game time or lead real. It was like 2 of those. Then I remember Mark says to me, he goes, you should get these mortgage leads in Okeechobee, Florida. Now I had no clue where in the world Okeechobee even was. And I jumped on that. It was a small, lead flow, because it's a very, not a very heavily populated area, as you probably know. And lo and behold, I do that. And I had maybe I got 10 leads from them. I found a $300,000 annuity. And like, I couldn't tell you how to do an annuity. My life depended on it. I probably still can. But I just listened to what he told me. And then from there, it was, hey, this is available for mortgage. Do a drop there. I didn't care. I remember when I started, people were like, oh, you're going to run in Miami-Dade. It's going to be really hard. There's a lot of people that speak Spanish. I don't know how you're going to do it. I was just like, whatever. What am I going to do? There's people there. There's leads there. I'll play the numbers. If 2 out of 10 are Spanish, so be it. Now, as you grow an agency, you have Spanish agents, and they're going to help you with those things. So I was just trying to just figure it out, but playing offense with it, right? Like not playing defensively, just being like, okay, let me just go do it and find a way. Like I remember distinctly, it was a early on appointment, and it was a Spanish couple. They're the nice couple in the world. I don't speak a lick of Spanish. I found a Spanish agent I met at the convention. He got on the phone with me. He had never run an appointment before. And I think we sold like a $500 a month between the 2 of them. Still on the books as well. So it's just like one of those things, like you have to find a way when you're doing this. And too many people I find will make like excuses as to why they can't find a way when the answers are right there. Like there's help everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's huge. Your schedule, Steve, I have a question for you, especially your first 90 days or even out, because I know you're very structured. What did your schedule, did you ever, go hard for a couple of weeks, take a week off? I mean, what did your schedule look like your first 90 days?
Yeah, I don't think I did anything fun like for a long time. I ran just, it was up at 4, workout Mondays, dial the phone at 8 a.m. and many nights because I wasn't good at it in the beginning. You dial all day, maybe take a little break in the afternoon, dialing a lot at night. I was just so like focused on the number of 30 appointments that I just dialed until my fingers bled. And then in the field, full days, 12 hours, like 8 to 8, 9 to 9, whatever. Sacrificing Saturdays. I think in the last 2.5 years, maybe I've had 3 Saturdays off, maybe. And I've always made up for it. Like, hey, I'm going to run Thursday because I didn't run Saturday, that was just my schedule because like, to me, I just have like this back against the wall mentality. Even like today, like I still do. It's kind of weird. Like came home tonight and I'm like, I got to go dial some more. Like I don't have enough appointments. It's just a mentality you have to have, but you don't have to do it forever, as we know,
Right.
we're getting into with this business. But if you do it in the short term and you catapult yourself and you create cash flow, the second you create cash flow in this business, it's over because you've figured out how to do it. You know what it takes to do it, and you can just do it over and over and over again.
So I think that's huge, and that's a huge gold nugget. And I think what you just said, the mentality is so different from honestly what I hear from a lot of new agents, which obviously, hello, that's why you're successful. So when you came in, your mentality was you already knew you're going to have to put in way more work, but it's not forever because eventually you're going to be good at this. And if you put all the hard work in for 90 days and give yourself like a 90-day blueprint, at the end of that, you can, now you're much better on the phone. So I'm sure you're not, now you book them up much sooner, or, you're much better in home. You got your groove, you got your feel. You're not a slave to this. But in the beginning, you understood the concept of there's no time off. I know what the potential is. Back to the wall, have grit, be consistent, don't be emotional, make sure the activity sticks. And what you said relates to everybody. You struggled with the 8, 9, 10, 11 appointments, but you were so consistent that eventually it was 30 and 30, and 30. Is there anything else in there that I missed that you would say that, you tell new agents starting out of the game?
I think one of the things is like getting used to failing in the sense of like, if you get 7 out of 10 no's, not interested, they don't buy in the house, whatever, and you sold 3 and they're whatever, let's say that $83 a month, which is $1,000, it's like $3,000 like in a day or a week.
Yeah.
I think a lot of agents get so like they get so into the one no or the one decline or the one this happened. Like that stuff is going to happen. But if you have enough leads and you have enough activity, all of that stuff doesn't matter. The chargebacks don't matter. The cancel, like none of it matters. It's I'm on to the next, I'm on to the next. And the same thing comes with the prosperity of the business. Whenever something good happens, I sold a big policy. Great, cool. Who's next? Like, I'll be happy in 12 months when it's still on the books. Now we worry about the next appointment. And I also think with the schedule, you have to create a domino effect. A lot of leads, dialing the phone. We're going to dwindle them down. Obviously, not everybody's going to book with you. I like to say if you book 30%, let's say that's the number. So I book 30%. I'm in the field. I'm on a door knock, probably the other like 20% that didn't answer the phone. And then if I sell half of them, and I write 7, 8, 10 as I get better, 15 and beyond, I'm always okay. But what happens is I think a lot of new agents get so hung up on like, oh my God, Mary said no. oh my God, Bob can't get approved because he has this. And it's like, whatever. You have to have enough leads that stuff doesn't matter. You're on to the next.
Yeah, I think that's huge. That's really, really good advice, because you're 100% correct. And I think that's great advice. I really want to get into, Steve, with you, your dial day, because we all know, listen, money's made on the phone, and I know you're a killer on the phones, obviously. And I know you're very regimented. I've heard you talk about your dial day before. What does dial day look like for you? And what mistakes do you see new agents make on the phones or their dial day compared to how you structure yours?
Yeah, no doubt. Number one, the phone should be ringing at 8 o'clock. If you're not sitting in a chair and the phone's not ringing at 8 o'clock, you're losing. You're losing to me. You're losing to you. You're losing to every other agent that's in, whether it's South Florida or anywhere else, that's on the phone. Because guess what? Somebody wants it more than you do, number one. So my mentality is always like 8 o'clock, I'm dialing the phone and I'm pounding it 4 dials in a row. And if they don't answer, I'm on to the next, and 4 dials in a row and on to the next. And then I'll go back to stuff. The other thing is people stay on the phone too long. The phone needs to be crazy simple. I'm confirming information you put down here. I'm finding a time you're going to be home. I'm finding a time I can come over. We're going to go through the options. What works best for you? I also think we get very excited with the script. I hate the word script. I'm not a script guy. What I try and do, conversation, question. Everything I do on the phone is I ask you a question of when you're going to be home, working or retired, date of birth, this, that, and the other. The questions take me to where I'm boxing you in a corner where you're going to tell me when you're going to be home and available. That's it. Once I get that agreement, I got it. Then lock it down, confirm it. It's on the books. We're on to the next one. I'm not trying to figure out your health. I'm not trying to figure out what product I'm going to put you in. I see agents, they book the appointment and then all of a sudden they're like going through the product guide of, I got to figure out where I'm going to put them. You don't even know if they have terminal cancer. Like you have no idea. Book the appointment. Go to the appointment. There's, I believe, 7,000 contracted writing FFL agents. Call any one of them when you're in the house. They will tell you what to write. Any one of them will. Worry about the appointments. And I think that's what hangs up some new agents. They're so enthralled in like just kind of fumbling along that they don't give themselves the appointment count. And then the day's over and they're like, oh my God, I have 2 appointments.
Okay. So something I heard you say too. So you dial 4 times in a row.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming to you, because a lot of people get caught up in the emotionality of dialing. A number's a number. I paid for your lead. I'm going to book you. I'll call to you, answer the phone, period. You're just a number. Don't care beyond that. On the phone, you're short, you're to the point. It's a simple conversation. Answer these questions. So it sounds like you're taking control. You're tying them down, move on to the next. You don't care. You just have to have 30 appointments for the week.
Right. I'll figure everything else out when I'm there. Like,
okay. On your dial day, because I don't know about you, but I definitely see where a lot of new agents, I feel, and I wanted to see what your dial day is like. Do you, book appointments in the middle of the day? Is your dial day just you and the phones and you don't have distractions? How many, dial, do you ever keep track of how many dials you're actually making a day to book your appointments? Like, what does the logistics of you dialing look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one, I've never tracked how many dials I've made, which is actually funny. I've thought about that a few times. I've never done a tracker. What I do, I have a spreadsheet that I put on my computer. I'm very old school with it in the sense that I have a spreadsheet, different tabs for different types of leads. I got them all printed out. I'm putting notes down on each one. I'll log them into my, I'm an Apple guy, so I have like the Apple calendar on my computer. I'm putting the appointments in there and then typing them into my spreadsheet. And I kind of color code my spreadsheet around like, okay, red is an appointment. Blue is, I dialed them 17 times, green, I go back, I sold them. And that's how I've kind of done it. Sometimes the typing and everything can be a little bit, like, it'll take a little longer, but the system for me has just kind of worked. My dial day 8 to, I guess, I block my calendar like 8 to 1. And now, with the agency building, I try and, you try and condense it, obviously, because you got time for interviews and stuff. Typically 8 to 1. Then I'm doing interviews, then there might be a training call, what have you. And then I'm most times in the evening. The other thing that I do, and it works for me, I don't want to say it's going to work for everybody. I dial in the car a lot. Like, I went into the day today, I dialed all my leads on Saturday while I was in the car, and I booked whatever it was, 5 appointments. I don't like to book too far out, but I always like to go into the day where I have a little bit of a, some structure around my day. I have like a skeleton schedule, so to speak. I don't like walking in with zero.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. I completely agree with that. I feel like you have a lot of stress when you walk in with zero. I know for me, Sunday afternoons, my, husband could watch when the baby took a nap. I could get on the phones and dial, and I was walking into Monday with a few at least.
Yeah.
Quick question. How many times will you dial the same lead in a day? Because I know a lot of people struggle with that one.
Like 16.
So it's when they pick up the phone. You don't care. Answer the damn phone. That's what I'm hearing.
Basically, I mean, it's funny. I've posted a couple times. Like, I think I had one last week. I called these people like 13 times within like 2 different top parts of the day, and then the next day I called them like twice, and they picked up. I went out to see them last Wednesday. They were the nicest people in the universe, and it was like a $200 a month Eagle Premier. And they're like, "Yeah, we don't answer the phone much." I was like, "Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm aware." Yeah, nobody knows better than me.
So Steve, I'm going to hound you. Sorry. The biggest thing I really wanted to get into with you is your in-home, because I know it's a killer and everybody probably wants to get you for your in-home. So, I want to, if it's okay, I wanted to go over your mortgage protection in home and your final expense.
Sure.
Which one would you rather start with?
To final expense.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So starting with your final expense in home, how do you approach those clients and how do you structure that?
Yeah, I think number one, in an in-home in general, you have to kind of walk in with the right mentality of you're in control, and that you started it from the phone, right? You were in control on the phone. Now I'm here. I'm walking in. I'm not a big rapport guy, but my rapport, I call it rapport from the door. I'm talking with you as we walk in. And again, I'm back to asking you questions. How long have you lived here? Where are you from originally? Blah, blah, blah. Like basic questions, but they're always questions that are things that I need. I'm not like talking to you about nonsense, because I'm about business, even in my rapport. I always go to the table, sit down, basically just tell them what I do. Here's my card, mortgage protection, final expense, retirement planning. Today, what we're going to do is very simple, Mary. We're just going to figure out a plan that you're going to get approved for based on your health, and that's going to fit your budget. Now, tell me about your beneficiary. I want to get right into who's the person we're protecting. From there, I jump right into health questions. Have you ever had anything major? Heart, stroke, cancer, anything big? Well, I've had blah, blah, blah. Okay, have you had anything more minor? Going through that stuff. And you know the drill, they're pulling out medications and all this stuff.
Right.
Jotting that down. Then I jump into the golden question. What do you have that acts like life insurance? Trying to find if it's annuity money or what have you. If they rent or buy, trying to, gather that a little bit. Then I'm big into the budget. I jump right into the budget. You make X, is your income, let's say mostly Social Security, and then your rent or your mortgage is X. What would you say is your outgoing expenses in addition to your loan? And I just start kind of, piecemealing it together. Depending on the client, I might get a little bit more in depth. I think on a final expense, some of those the budgets are a little tighter, let's say, usually. So you're going to try and hone in on that. But if they ever kind of give you any flack, you're always kind of going back to, Mary's daughter that lives in Cleveland, who has to fly here when she passes away. So you're just kind of always bringing it back to that place. So this way there's less of to think about it. And then from there, I think the biggest thing that I like to do is, and the reason why you can issue pay a lot, is getting people what they can get and not getting them what they can't get. Now, final expense is obviously very cut and dry. It's either going to be, like a level plan of any of our carriers or an AIG guaranteed issue. I'm going to show them 3 options, and I'm going to say which one of these fits best in your budget, because we're going to apply today. We're going to figure out if they're going to take you. I'm your advocate. We're going to try and find something that makes sense. And then I just like start the application. Like, I don't ask about the application. I'm like assuming everything, because that's why I'm there. And then if I get any pushback, I just always take it back right to, the beneficiary. So on like a final expense, I'm showing 3 options: burial, cremation, leaving a legacy, let's say, and just talking about it. And again, questions. What does life look like if you don't have this? I think one big thing that's helped me a lot is on the golden question, figuring out the other life insurances that they have, because 99 times out of 100, they suck, and we can put them in a better position, whether it's saving money or cashing something out, something running out, whatever. So that's pretty much final expense. I know that's not magical.
I think it's really, I love the fact that you ask right away who their beneficiary is going to be, because you're assuming I'm putting you in a policy. Well, duh, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So who's your beneficiary going to be? And then you're automatically pulling out the emotion as to why, instead of being around the bush, which I feel a lot of new agents do, because final expense, what it looks like to be final expenses behind. So you're right. I mean, it is pretty much cut and dry, but you're just very good at getting to the point. And then another thing you said was that you've already done their budget, know what they can afford, writing out 3 options that are probably on, maybe a little higher end of the budget, middle, something they can definitely afford. So whatever they pick, you're going right to the application. There's no reason for doubt because you don't have any, because you've done your underwriting well.
Yeah. I think one of the big keys is, like, you're basically playing the game a little bit. Like, I tell people, 1 of 2 people are going to get sold in an appointment. Don't let it be you. Like, and I just believe that, meaning they're going to tell you all this nonsense. They're going to tell you they don't have money. Here's my view of money. They come to me and they say, the client had no money. This is America. Everybody has money. Now, they don't have, let's say, a lot of money, but they have money. So now we got to figure out what's of less importance: their daughter being protected, or cigarettes, or whatever the case might be. And that might be an uncomfortable conversation for some new agents, but you have to get uncomfortable, because the agents or the clients, that's ultimately what they need. Because if not, they're going to continue going round and round and round, and then their kids are going to be screwed when they pass away.
Right. Now, right to the point. I want to get into your mortgage protection in homes, and everyone's back to hear it. I think that a lot of new people, when they go from, internet life, running those leads or final expenses, and they get into mortgage, they kind of lose themselves and fumble. Can you just take us through what specifically you do for your mortgage in, your mortgage appointments?
Yeah, I think same structure as what I would do on the final expense. The difference would be, I like to ask, obviously, okay, I'm looking at their mortgage number. I'm asking them, is it a new home or a refinance? Obviously, there's a lot of refinance going on right now. So it's actually awesome for mortgage protection, because people just saved a lot of money, right? So I'll figure out how many years are on the new mortgage. What is it? And then what I love to key in on is the value of their home. If you look at the policies I write, if I could do a percentage, I probably write 70% final expense policies on mortgage protection clients. Obviously, we live in Florida. We have, you know, an older clientele population. And one of the things that new agents can struggle with is, man, I got an 81-year-old and they have a $400,000 loan. How in the hell am I going to cover that? And the reality is you're not. But what you're going to talk to them about is the critical period coverage. Hey, Darcy, can you mute?
Here, I got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you obviously you have those two different types of clients. You have like your, let's say you're younger, where you're going to maybe go the term, and then you have like your older, where you're going to do critical period coverage. So you kind of have to know a little bit what you're looking at, what you're walking into. And with that, health is always the biggest thing. One of the biggest mistakes people can make is, I try to get you a term and then you get declined everywhere on a term, and I have nowhere to go after that because that's all I've sold you on. So I'm not the big guy. I'm going to sell you on, you should have this term. It's a MUTLE and it's the greatest thing ever, you know, for you, because it's going to cover all of your loan or half of your loan or third of your loan, whatever. I need to really dig into your health. There are times where if I find it a little questionable on your health, I might run you through the start of an HMS to see what comes up. And then if I got you through it, great. Then we're talking living benefits. Then we're talking whatever, if it's cash back, whatever it might be. But if it comes back declines and stuff's questionable, and I think term's going to be out of the picture, I have to have the backup plan of permanent. So in that scenario, and sorry to jump all over the place, I'm looking at their mortgage number, and on most of them, they have a good amount of equity. Like I'd probably say 90% of the people I sit with, it isn't like a brand new mortgage. They have a decent amount of equity in their house. So now I can almost downsell them on insurance, because let's face facts. If you walk in and you have somebody healthy and they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they have a loan that's upwards of 150 to 300, a term, even if it's a 15-year, is going to be pretty expensive. There's going to be plenty of them that can afford it. There's going to be a lot of other ones that are going to balk at it, probably the majority. So I need to almost downplay them on what they need and talk a lot about how we're going to leverage the equity that they have in their house. You know, Bob and Mary, you have 150,000 of equity and you owe X, whatever it is. We're going to leverage off that. So this way, when one of you passes away, we're going to be able to give out, let's say, however many months of mortgage payments, divide 100,000 benefit, let's say, divided by however many months. It's going to cover you the 15 years or what have you. And if I have to go the whole life route, it's kind of the same deal. And I'm always saying things like, this is what people in your scenario typically do. You know, I had a lady the other day, she was 73. Her loan was like 200. I got her an Eagle Premier for $115 a month. I think it covered like 15,000, and it was like a year of her mortgage payments or whatever it was. And I'm like, here's what you're going to do in the year. Your son is either going to take the money, he will leverage all of your equity and then refinance your house, or he'll take this money, fix up your house and sell it. And I always future cast, meaning I'll tell them what it looks like if they die tomorrow, but then I'll say like, okay, let's say you live 15 years. And I always kind of do it where then it's cutting the loan in half. Now you live 15 years, your equity is now up here, and I kind of like map it out. And what you owe is down here. And I'll say to them, you know, people are usually just trying to fill the gap. And I then say things like, I don't want to get you too much insurance, because why would you want to pay way too much insurance knowing that your loan amount is going to go down as time goes on? And they're like, wow, that makes sense. Because it's for those people, you know, you run mortgage protection. Yeah. The people you walk in and they're like, I just want to cover 300,000. Like,
yeah.
All right, Bob, I want a Lamborghini, but I need to drive a Toyota. And the bottom line is we both need a car because you got to get from point A to point B.
Right.
Does that make sense, Bob? So here's what we're going to do, because you're not going to spend $3,000 a month. and you probably wouldn't get approved for it anyway. So you kind of have to play the game a little bit with it to figure out, if it's first is obviously the health component, then it's obviously the budget component. Because let's say the person has the health, but on the term, they're not going to spend $600 a month on the term because it's not in their budget.
So you're really pitching it as, yes, you could get this and spend this fortune, but that's not what you need. So this is what we're going to protect equity because you don't need this amount covered. So because I think that's the biggest, I hear a lot of new agents, well, they want this, they only want to cover the house and pay it off. So your transition is what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, you really take control. Yes, that's great, but I'm not going to allow you to overspend and be overinsured. So now we're going to do this over here.
Right.
Okay. And then real quick, Steve, I want to be respectful of your time. I know a few people have questions. In a traditional mortgage appointment, let's say you do have a younger couple, is there any like tidbits in that mortgage in home? I mean, obviously, if they're young and they're healthy, it's way more straightforward. You can go ahead and cover it, but you obviously are real. I mean, do you have anything you would say in a mortgage appointment that you go, listen, if these are the top 3 things that you need to do in a mortgage protection in home, or top 3 things that I do, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I think one thing on the young people, like those are the ones that you really have to pull out emotion, because let's face it, young people feel like they're invincible. Like, oh yeah, like I'm 33 and I'm healthy and I don't take anything and I can get approved for this anytime I want. And what you need to do in those is you need to dig, because the biggest problem is agents go in and they're like, oh, it's going to be a home run. I got the 2 33-year-olds and they got this. It's going to be a couple $100 a month and they're going to love it. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. And then they don't want to do anything because they're not the 65-year-old who's had a heart attack, who's scared crap that something could happen to them tomorrow, right? So in those, and I'd say in most, you got to pull out emotion. Like, I'll look at the wife and say, Mary, if Bob doesn't come home tomorrow, if he gets, hit by a car tomorrow, does not come home, what does that look like for you financially? And guess what? I already have that information because I asked them their budget, and I always break out their income, based, splitting them apart. And then I wait for her to talk, and I'll say things like to Bob, Bob, all due respect, you're not here, so let's figure out what you would do, type of a thing. And it just pulls out emotion. There's a couple of good videos. I haven't done it recently, but early on, Life Happens. If anybody Googles or YouTube's Life Happens, there's a couple of videos, and I used to play them. And it was like a video of a dad it was a dad putting a daughter to bed, and then the mom's putting the daughter to bed, and the mom says, don't worry, dad took care of it. Like, so simple. I used to play it like when I was doing quotes. I haven't done it in a long time, but it's just like a little thing. I think Matt Walker told me it, actually, to give him credit.
I should have asked him earlier. That's
you should have.
I'm going to text him after this. That's awesome. I love that.
It's just like a little thing, but I think, over time, I started in my communication, like it's almost funny. Like, like you'll be in an appointment and people are kind of like a little jovial, like the younger couple. And then all of a sudden you're like dead serious. Yeah. And they're like, oh, wow. And I'll be like, yeah, I'm dead serious. Use stories. I had a story. It was right before convention. I had a couple, they were in their 50s, and husband got an HMS. He died the day I landed for convention. It was my only Americo death claim. I don't know how that's even possible, but my only Americo death claim. He died 2 weeks to the day that he got a policy, an HMS, for $150,000.
Wow.
And the wife wanted to cancel, and I talked her out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. Well, that's awesome, Steve. I could literally keep you on all night, of course, picking your brain. I really, really appreciate you coming on and training all of us. I want to let you go right at 9:00. If anyone has, I know everyone's kind of been waiting to ask some questions. So if you want to go ahead, we'll take a few, just like 5 minutes. That's okay. So if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and have any questions for Steve, go right ahead. Now's your chance.
I have a question, Steve.
How are you?
Hey, good. This is Jessica. So my question, kind of like a 2-in-1. What do you say when you are closing the sale? And also, do you sell both the husband and the wife on mortgage protection, or is it just the breadwinner?
Yeah, I always try to go both because I definitely want to get 2 apps in the house. Even if it's, I mean, I've had scenarios, where it's like a daughter and a mom and whatever. I'm looking around the house and I'm finding people who need insurance. So I'll start talking about the different angles with whomever it is in the scenario. The closing piece, doing the application, letting them know, hey, look, when we're done with this, they're going to approve you. And then we're going to pick an option right here. And then we're going to have a plan in place. They're going to mail you a policy in 7 to 10 days. In those 7 to 10 days, if we need to adjust the face amount and the premium, what have you, we can do that. But my job is to make sure that when I leave, if something happens to you in the next 5 minutes, that you're covered. Like, does that make sense? So I'm getting buy-in. I also think throughout, it's almost like you're teeing them up the whole time. Like from the minute you walk, really from the phone, actually, from the phone all the way through, it's like a whole tee up of like, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And then in the questions that I'm asking the whole time, it's almost like they're agreeing with me the whole time as to why it makes sense, and then just letting them know, look, we're putting it in and banking information and social and the whole deal. And I think asking for that stuff, which obviously you get some objections sometimes, if you ask it like it's nonchalant and it's not a big deal, like they'll give it to you. And you know what I do when they say no? I just ask them a second time. And then if they say no the second time, I ask them a third time. And lo and behold, people will do things the third and fourth time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Anyone?
Thank you.
I actually had a quick question. I was wondering, like, how often and how far do you usually travel for your appointments?
Good question. So I live in South Florida in Broward County, and I have Dade County. So you figure it's probably an hour and a half, 2 hours all the way south. Then I have a 2-hour swing all the way up like Palm Beach. Early on, I had Port St. Lucie, which is like a little even further. So I pretty much have like hour and a half to 2 hours on each end of the spectrum. I've had days where I've went from, and I don't know where you live, but Homestead, which is way down south, all the way up to Port St. Lucie. You know what it is? I tell you this, I don't worry about it. You drive a lot. Like you drive a lot. I map out the appointments the best that I can. You run the full days. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, you know what? If it challenges me and it's hard and I do it, I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm not going to have to do it forever.
Great advice.
I have a question. It's Stefania, by the way. Have you ever been in a house where mortgage protection entirely, and they kind of like pull up their computer or like something like they got in the mail, but like you're showing me this for this amount, but they're saying that I could get qualified for, $500,000 for like $100, and they're obviously high up in age and have a lot of medical conditions. How do you go about that?
Oh, I love those. It's like the final expense ones where they say like I saw the thing on TV where it's like $9.99. I love those. Here's what you do. You look at them dead in the eye and you say, Bob and Mary, like you seem pretty smart. Does that make sense to you? Like if you were the insurance company, would you give somebody $1 million policy for $25 at age 50 something?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll say things like, the insurance companies don't lose money. Like, so I want to put you in something that actually makes sense and you get what you pay for in life. So And 90, I had one on Saturday. The guy had an accidental policy and he was healthy. And he's like, I have this great policy. It's $88 a month. And he's crazy healthy and he has a moo accidental. And literally told him 4 times to get it. Finally got it. And he literally pulled it out in front of me and I took it and I go like that, read that. And it said accidental. So I think in those scenarios, and they're hard, I think you have to build up your confidence to understand that you have a license, they don't. So tell them what makes sense. This stuff, Bob and Mary, that you have on your counter, it doesn't make sense. And 99 times out of 100, they are accidentals, let's say, or things that are very short in years of terms. Like if somebody's getting a $500,000 term and it's a 10-year, I'll tell people, hey, like you could do a 30-year of 150 with living benefits. And guess what? That has more value because that 10-year term, the insurance company loves because 98% of the time you're going to outlive it. And then they're going to make all the money. And if you get sick in that time, they're going to keep all the money too. So let's talk in reality. This 150 where you could access the money if you got cancer tomorrow and it takes you 30 years makes sense. I love to sell on longevity of a policy. I like years. Because, and I tell them, I'm like, look, in the long run, on a 30-year policy, you're saving money. On a 10-year policy, you're going to lose money. You're probably statistically going to outlive it. And now you're 10 years older, your health isn't as good as it's going to be today, and it's going to be double. So what makes more sense in the long run?
Right. That's perfect. Thank you for that.
No doubt.
Hey, brother, I kind of had a two-parter for you. The first one, I know you kind of touched a little bit on your financial inventory, right? So when you're in home, like, do you just get a general, when you're looking at financial inventory, like, all right, Bob makes $5,500 a month, Mary makes $2,200 a month. And do you then dig and unlayer that, like line by line, like power, water, you go that deep, or are you just kind of an overall big picture? You see their house is $1,500 a month, the combined income's $8,000, and you just kind of leave it there, or do you get very granular with it?
Kind of midway, I'd say. Because I think sometimes if you take it for granted, and it always happens when they make a lot of money and you don't dig a little bit, then it kind of bites you. So I'll go, okay, we got our 2 incomes, we got our monthly mortgage payment. And then I always ask it, like, what would you say is your outgoing monthly expense? And then they'll start breaking stuff out. And if they don't say something that like is common sense, like a car payment or food or entertainment or whatever, I'll start throwing that out. And then sometimes they don't want to give you anything. And then I'll say things like, on average, the people I meet with, they spend $1,500 to $2,000 in bills. Would you say that's about you? I'll ask certain things like, do you have any major credit card debts? Anything that they're going to use as an objection in the end, saying, oh my God, I got student loans. Like some of the big stuff. Do I break it out? I don't break it out like to the penny, but some of the big stuff, I'm going to start throwing it out if I didn't hear it. And then I always like to say, like when they have a big gap, I'll always say things like, well, let's throw in another 500 for entertainment or whatever. Because I'm still giving myself enough room, but I hate when it's like, oh yeah, we have an extra like 2,000. And I always get agreement from them like, okay, based on what you're telling me, you'd say you have an extra $700 a month. That sound about right? Or does that sound a little high? And then I'll even say stuff like, it sounds a little high to me. And they're like, yeah, that actually does sound a little high. I'm like, all right, let's cut a couple hundred off. 500 sound about right? Okay, cool. So 500's our number. Because all I'm doing is loading my gun the whole time. Yeah.
And then my last question, dude, I think that it's amazing. Like it seems about 99.999% of the business you write is Americo, right? And I think that so many agents are thinking out of their own pocket and they're like, oh, I'm going to go with Moo term. I'm going to go with an IULE that I know nothing about. And I found myself like 2 months in doing that. And I got so lost in the weeds. I lost so many deals. And finally, I'm like, all right, screw this. I'm going back to what I know. And that's America, America, America. So can you just talk to some of the agents here that, they're like, oh, well, Moo's cheaper, or John Hancock, or I got an IULE. What is your advice to an agent to keep it simple, and just why did you write only America? And obviously you did 1.3 million, right? So you're pretty damn successful at it. So can you talk to us about why America and how that you build that value when it's not the cheapest option, right? So can you just walk us through your mentality behind America?
Yeah, I think you said a very key thing there. For me early on, like I wasn't going to pretend I was the insurance guru. So I was like, okay, this is simplistic. It's easy to understand. It's easy to present. And the other big thing was I learned how was I going to get paid? Okay. So if I run Americo every time, 75% of the time I'd say they're getting through it or what have you, right? If I live in that world, 75% of my business is issuing. If 25% of it I have to go elsewhere because they got declined with Americo, so be it. I'll deal with the 25%, but I do not want to stick in the muck and the mire of the underwriting, the phone interviews, like Moo taking 2 weeks to approve stuff. Like I just don't want to deal with it. And I want to run such volume. I don't want to play this game of like I got to go back and like get all this stuff done. So it just made it really simple for me. And I also think if you can talk to Americo and why they're so good, like I tell people I'm a broker and I work with different companies, but I don't give them choices. I think that's a big mistake new agents make. It's like, well, let me quote you Americo and let me quote you Moo, and this one is 50 cents cheaper. But yeah, but it doesn't do this, that, and the other. And it's going to take 2 weeks to issue, and it's going to blah, blah, blah. You need to be the one in control. And if you lead with Americo and could get that 75%, your life would be so much easier. Policies would issue, they get mailed, they have great products. And I mean, what is it going to save them to go write whoever else? They're all about within give or take. And I also even tell some clients, I'm like, look, you, with each carrier, they're regulated. So the only difference in price is one's giving you more than the other. That's all. Like it's based on age. Like it's one has a couple more bells and whistles than the other one. That's it. But again, you're the expert. So you're the one who can kind of lead the way.
Dude, I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Will you go over again when you started, when people, you got them on the phone and they say, well, I already have my policy. I just got my policies. I've got it all covered. So what would you say is the best way to get those people to let you come in and sit down with them?
Perfect. That's the reason for my call. I assume that you like to save money. And then they say, oh, of course I love to save money. Great. Or I've heard some people say, yeah, that's awesome. We just have to come out and review. There's a lot of new programs that have better prices that are out there and better options. We're just going to be out in the area tomorrow. We're going to swing by for about 15 minutes. So some of those you're almost like kind of forcing your way to get in front of them. And the fact of the matter is, in those, the ones that you can actually talk a little bit longer, a lot of them you will get in the door because people meet with multiple people. Like they do. Like everybody here is going to have a policy replaced at some point. And it's because somebody else was able to kind of get in the door. Are you going to win that battle every time? No. I think mentally you have to have in your head saying, I'm not always going to get past that. If they just don't want to do it, they're on my door knock list. And then I get in front of them.
Thanks.
No doubt.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you. I know I've kept you longer than I said I would. I'm sure everyone could go on for hours picking your brain, but thank you for all of the awesome, just gold nuggets. I know I learned all your advice. It's phenomenal. Love watching you kill it out there. I know you're also building a huge team as well and managing both, which is really impressive. So you keep writing, so you dialing, so you're disciplined, and also instilling it in all your new agents. So thank you again. I know we all appreciate you.